This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 263, The Climb Everyday Sales Process, an interview with Mark Steele.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and today we meet Mark Steele. Mark is the podcast host of the Climb Everyday podcast, where he inspires professionals to achieve a life of confidence, growth, and success. Mark believes that you create your own success in the steps that we take every day. For Mark, climbing is a metaphor for that daily growth. I've been on Mark's podcast, and today we discuss that balance between listening well and telling relevant stories. You don't want to be too much of a listener, and you don't want to be too much of a talker. What is the sweet spot there? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's let Mark do the babbling. So, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, Mark. You ready to babble?
I am so ready to babble.
Mark, you're a international speaker, speaking skills coach, podcast host, avid rock climber. You sold for Microsoft for quite a while. What does it say, 15 years here? You sold $1 billion worth of software stuff. Is that right?
That's right. Over my 15-year career, it actually exceeded that. That's a bit of a conservative estimate there. But yeah, I was very fortunate, had a great career with Microsoft.
This is a sales podcast, so we want to know your secrets. How is it that we can sell $1 billion worth of software?
Well, you get yourself a 15-year career with a well-known industry-leading technology company. No, I think that whether it's $1 billion, $1 million, whatever it is that folks are striving for me, it was all about building relationships with my customers, and beyond just shaking hands, spending a few moments in the room with them, but really connecting with them, understanding their challenges. And then really what I found most effective for me is when I spoke back to them, I used their language so that I was speaking in a way that they could best understand. So I think that's the cornerstone for me to whatever quota you're going after.
How did you come to this realization that if you kind of spoke back to them, what they said to you, like repeated back to them, I'm assuming, right? That's what we're talking about. How'd you come to that realization? Were you naturally like this?
Actually, before my career at Microsoft, I did not have a sales background. I did not study business in college. I actually studied acting and theater in college. And I somewhat stumbled into my Microsoft career many years ago because I got placed there as a temp. And after some time, they came to me and said, well, I hear that you have a public speaking background. How would you like to come and be an evangelist? Just tell the story of Microsoft products. And I said, sure, I'll do that, thinking I would do it for a year or two. And very quickly, I was so drawn in by Microsoft technology, by working with customers in a way that I had never been exposed to before, that I started to recognize that my ability to tell a story, but to very specifically apply that to a customer, seemed to work very effectively and help me connect with them. And that same job transformed out under my feet, essentially. And I went from being a one-to-many evangelist to being a one-to-one technical sales seller, meeting routinely with executives and vice presidents of infrastructure, so on and so forth, and having very specific conversations. And my background in speaking and storytelling, I was able to apply that to the business world, and it went very, very well.
I remember I was at the auto show, and I was talking to this lady. She seemed like a rep. She was talking about this electrical car that I think GM had. I asked her probably 10 different questions one after another. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting stuff. So what do you do? I mean, are you an engineer or what? She goes, oh, no, I'm an actress. I was hired to come here. They gave us 2 weeks of training. And I was blown away by her technical ability, her ability. Was that a stretch for you?
For sure, it was a stretch. It continued to be a stretch throughout my entire career. In fact, I have shared in blog posts and on my own podcast that for a long time I struggled with imposter syndrome, thinking that at any second I was going to get fired from my job, even though I was actually quite good at it or very effective at it. And much of that came down to me not having that technical background, not having a sales degree behind me, and feeling like I was constantly trying to catch up to the technology that was moving along at a faster and faster pace. But what I kept coming back to, and what eventually really centered me and helped me be truly successful, was understanding how important it is of what I did know, what I was good at, which is the ability to build relationships, connect with the people that I was talking to, and then be able to speak with them in a way that was engaging and compelling, and ultimately drove that conversation forward, which would eventually lead to the sale.
Yep, I love that. And it kind of brings me to the whole point that I brought you on the podcast here, because you're a rock climber. It says here on your resume here, and you have this climb every day mentality process. What exactly would you call that? And that's what I wanted to chat about today. What's this climb every day?
A couple of years ago, I was looking for a way to stretch myself physically. I had, like many people, I had joined many different gyms and gone once or twice and didn't follow through on it. So I was looking for a way to live a healthier lifestyle, but in a way that I enjoyed it. I stumbled across a climbing gym, and I was hooked immediately, started going several times a week. And not only was it improving me physically, but I quickly started to realize the mental benefit, the mental growth that I was having by challenging myself every single day, or every time I stepped into that gym, to just push myself beyond where I was comfortable. And when climbing, you have a chance to do that over and over again. Every day there's a different way you can go up that wall. It's a new experience. You don't know how it's going to go. And certainly you have some safety procedures in place in the form of a rope or something and a harness in the event that you come off the wall. But every time you can't help but think, one slip of my hand, my foot doesn't plant right, and I'm in for a fall. And yes, the rope does catch you, but there is a fall before that happens.
I used to hate these things, actually. But once I kind of learned that you have to like push up on your legs and not on your hands and arms.
That's right.
It makes a huge, like I could like those bouldering walls, where they go sideways. Like my wife's got one of these in her school, and the kids like go sideways. But about those walls, it can be frightening.
Yeah, I've had some scary falls. Probably one of my biggest falls was about 20 feet. Really, it gets everything nice and tight in your body as that's happening.
But you were strapped in, right? With the on belay
Yes.
and all that, right? Right. Somebody.
That's right. I've never, knock on wood, I've never hit the ground. Or all the safety procedures worked exactly as they were supposed to. But for a couple of seconds there before that rope catches, you can't help but hope that everything is going to turn out all right. But
So there's a correlation between this and selling.
For sure. And for me, it was that mental charge of being able to just figure things out every time, where you don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, but to just commit to pushing yourself, discovering what works, what doesn't work, not being frustrated by the fact that you didn't make it up the wall, or you didn't get the sale immediately, or the conversation didn't go exactly as you had planned. But at least you're learning, you're pushing, you're stretching yourself. And eventually you start to develop your own methodology. You figure out what works and what doesn't work, and you get more and more efficient at executing on what does work. And so for me, climbing is a great metaphor for just the willingness to step into an area where we're uncomfortable, and knowing that we're going to figure this out no matter what.
Sales Babble is about selling secrets for non-sellers, people who have some passion or love about something, some product, some service, something they're about, but they're not passionate about motivating others, selling to others. And there's a lot of fear often around that. This is what's interesting about you is I don't think it sounds like you never really had a fear of getting in front of people.
I didn't have a fear of getting in front of people. I had a great deal of fear around sales. In fact, probably still, when I left the corporate world about a year and a half ago, I attributed to my success to being a good storyteller, to being able to be confident in front of a group of people. And it took me even a little while to realize that I was actually quite good at sales, even though I had mentally avoided that. And I think not just my ability to tell a story, but more importantly, my desire to actually help people, serve people when I'm there in the room with them. That customer, I'm there to learn about them. I'm there to learn about their challenges, what's keeping them up at night, and then understanding what it is that I have, what product or service or offering that I have, could help them overcome that challenge. And that's really what my approach was each and every time I was in the room with a customer. And that took the pressure off of me. It wasn't about how much do I know? Am I going to be able to answer every single question? Is my hair okay? It was about them. And as long as I was focused on them, listening to them, and speaking in their language, 9.9 times out of 10, I'm gonna do okay.
It almost seems like there's like two opposites going on here, which is I wanted to bring up with you. This idea, like you just said, about speaking back what you heard from them. But there's also this reoccurring thing you've been saying, you've been doing storytelling, which is like one directional. How do you like balance those two things? Because I think a lot of people think great sellers are glib and articulate and they talk a lot. And the storyteller thing kind of is part of that. But at the same time, you're also saying you're really good at listening and speaking back with this helpful mindset. How do you balance those two things?
Storytelling to me effectively with a customer is not really about, hey, I have this awesome story that happened to me 6 months ago that I want to share with you, although that is part of it. More importantly, storytelling to me is about understanding the customer, understanding the person that you're having a conversation with, and then being able to speak back to them effectively in using what you're hearing from them, and then leveraging your experience and your knowledge to augment what it is that you're saying. So, for example, just as you did a few moments ago, your trade show example, is that story complemented what I was saying. It wasn't about you. It wasn't self-serving. It was just an experience that you had that added more value into what the point that I was trying to make. And I think that that's what effective storytelling in business is being able to leverage your experience, your knowledge, but really just be able, it's do it in a compelling way that resonates with the customer.
What makes this compelling? Sometimes these things are not compelling. Sometimes these tales are boring.
There's key for me. What makes it compelling is short and sweet. I think our stories, all of us that are in sales, I think need to have some stories in our back pocket. 8 to 10 stories that we're practicing when we're sitting in the car or when we're taking a shower in the morning, whatever it is, that we're just kind of polishing these stories so that we get to know them and understand when they may be useful talking to our various customers. A good story is less than a minute long, maybe a minute and a half at the most, and it is highly relevant to the conversation. So that's why we should have 8 or 10 of them. And so that based on the conversation I'm having with you, Pat, I'm going to pull this particular story, but I'm going to, if I'm speaking with a different customer, then I'm going to leverage another story. So that's how you can make sure that the audience will stay engaged, is they're short, they're clear on exactly what the message or the point of the story is, and then they're relevant to what it is that they care about.
So what's a story you used to tell at Microsoft?
Common stories for me always were customer success stories. So you would, in working with a customer, for example, say a manufacturing customer. So if I was meeting with another manufacturing client, then that spoke about a particular challenge they were having with being able to communicate between their operations and their staff in the down in the factory floor themselves, then I would have a story at the ready of saying, well, this is a similar situation we ran into at manufacturing company X, and how we were able to go about helping them is by working directly with their organizations and representatives from the factory floor, find out what it is that they needed in order to better communicate with each other. And then we help them put those systems in place. And in fact, came in over several times and did training to make sure that what these new processes were effective. Something that to that effect, something short, something with a clear message, whether it was a success story or even a failure story is often just as engaging,
right?
As long as you learn a lesson from that failure, and then it was highly targeted at the particular customer you're speaking to.
I think these kind of stories are really powerful. I do this all the time in selling. Yep, we got guys like you right down the street. This kind of situation, when they were unsure what to do, we came in there. We showed them some options. They gave it a try, and I'll be darned if they're not successful. They saved themselves from a terrible amount of grief. You know,
and having that outcome, even the more specific, the more measurable the outcome. Their efficiency increased by 10% or something like that. That's really compelling as well, as opposed to, they communicated better. The more specific and measurable you can make the outcome, the more the listener, it resonates with them.
Oh yeah, if you talk about the fundamental benefits of cost, revenue, profit, time, quality, if it's got any kind of those measurable results, that makes all the difference.
And I think that by having those types of stories, and another great one to have is a why story. Why it is that you do what you do. Why does your company do what it does? Why does this product exist? So again, if you're in a customer situation, a why story can people they are more compelled by why you do something versus what you do. And so having these different types of stories at the ready that you've practiced, that you know have a clear message, they're concise, they're compelling, and then just kind of practice those from time to time when you have some time to yourself. It can really make a difference in a sales conversation. In fact, people will never remember all the facts and figures that you
nope, there aren't. Nope.
out of your mouth during a conversation. They will remember the stories.
Yep, I'm with you. So you could sum up the Climb Everyday mindset so that when people reflect back on this and they can go take action on this, how would you do that?
For me, it's about challenging myself a little bit every single day. It's whether it's to learn something new, whether it's to do some reading. For me, more recently, about a year ago, I started using a gratitude journal. So I take some time every single day to write down things that I'm grateful for. But even more recently, less than a month ago, I started doing daily affirmations where I would write at the beginning of my day, I start writing things that I want to happen in my life. It's various things like that, whether it's physically, mentally, your career, your personal life, your relationships. Find ways to go to do something you've never done before, to push your comfort limits and try something that is uncomfortable for you, because that's where growth happens. Growth does not happen in areas that we're comfortable. It only happens when we're pushing ourselves into uncomfortable places.
Absolutely. Tell us about your podcast.
Well, the podcast has been out for about 3-4 months now, having a great time. As you've mentioned, it's called the Climb Everyday Podcast. And it really, I have an opportunity to not only do some solo episodes where I'm just sharing things that I've learned, like I said, about gratitude or affirmations, whatever it may be, but also interviewing some incredible people that I have had the pleasure of connecting with, talking. My main focus is about understanding different areas of impact that they have in others' lives, and understanding challenges that they've had and the lessons that they've learned from that, because we're all suffering from our own forms of imposter syndrome time to time. We have been stopped. We've been stuck, and the imposter within us tends to think we are the only one that can't figure this out. We're the only one screwing this up. And it's just not true, that everybody else is going through those same challenges in one way or another. So I love talking to people and having them share some of those challenges so that we can all learn together. And then I actually like to end each episode with just a fun fact, just random, silly fact, so that we can all grow and learn together every day.
So if people want to find your website and find your podcast, where would they go?
MarkSteele.com. I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes. It is a great place to start. And then the podcast is available on all podcast platforms. So iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it. It's out there. And then I'm most active on LinkedIn. So if you are LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but I'm most active on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Steele Speaks on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from your listeners and would love to have them listen to the show sometime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, you and I just got connected on LinkedIn. So we're all big, avid LinkedIn users here on Sales Babble. All of us, all the sales babblers. So, and I'm going to be on your podcast in a little bit, in 15 minutes. You're going to record.
I'm very much looking forward to that conversation.
Last but not least, you were going to give something away. I got a note here.
Yes, I would. Not only do I help organizations with their sales and leadership strategies, but as you can tell, I'm also pretty passionate about effective communication, effective speaking, especially when you're talking to your customers. And so I have created a PDF that encapsulates my Speak with Impact methodology. It uses the acronym IMPACT to follow through on key things you should think about when talking to your customer. And I would love everybody to be able to take advantage of that. You can go to my website that is also after the podcast. So it's climeeveryday.com/babble. So if you do, climeeveryday.com/babble, you'll get that PDF that will help you speak with impact.
Awesome. Mark, thank you very much for visiting us here on Sales Babble and babbling with us. I really, really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Pat.
What an interesting path that Mark took to get into sales, from theater to sales. Oh, my goodness. And I think back on my own self. How did I get from software to sales? Oh, the places we go, as Dr. Seuss said. It's just fascinating, the path that we can take, that all of us can become sellers from a world we thought that'd be the last thing we'd ever do. But all of us can become great sellers, masterful sellers, helping people with great solutions. Something I didn't mention in the interview was that Mark has a book coming out called Invincible Success: How to Amplify Your Sales, Leadership, Speaking, and Self. If you want to be on top of that, make sure and go to his website at marksteele.com, and I'll place all those things in the show notes. That's all I've got for today, folks. If you got any other questions or comments, don't hesitate to go to the salesbabble.com website and click the Babble Me button and ask me a question. I'm more than happy to answer every one of them. Got a lot of people been signing up on the email list recently. I've changed the website to make it easier for you to do that. So like I said, that's all I got for today. Until next Tuesday, 3 a.m., take care and have a highly successful and profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.